Friends, it's 1 minute past. We have a lot of people signed on, and I would just like to welcome you to this launch workshop online about the Food Systems Institute. My name is Andrea Bohn, and I'm actually project coordinator in the Feed the Future Innovation Lab for Livestock Systems. And we are a big component, so to speak, of FSI, but Bola will explain some more about that later. So welcome to the session. We were so delighted about the interest from people with many, many different backgrounds. And it's so important for this institute. It's very interdisciplinary. The big challenges and opportunities facing us in food systems can only be tackled when people with very different experiences, skill sets, and perspectives come together. So thank you for being here today. And Bola, I do not yet see Scott Angle. Have you seen him?
Yes, he's on.
Yeah. Scott, may I give the microphone over? I just want to make sure that Scott is on. And let me get started by sharing with you the objectives. I mean, why did we all come together today? Some of you may have heard of the Institute, but I assume a lot of people have not. So our first objective is to tell you more about it. We want to give you a chance to interact with current members. And we want to hear from you how your work and interests relates to what the Food Systems Institute is doing and planning to do. And we have a fairly simple agenda, but after the introduction, we'll have a first round of discussions. We have 3 presentations in plenary. They're going to be ultra short presentations, basically just 5 minutes. And then we hope to get lots of responses to you in the chat in particular, questions, comments. And Kathy will be selecting 1, 2, or maybe 3 questions for the presenter to respond to. And then we're already going to move on to the next one. And we've likened this to serving a round of appetizers. You're basically just getting a small flavor snapshot of the topic, and then we're going to move on to the next one. So then we'll have breakout sessions. The Food Systems Institute, and Bola will explain this in a bit more detail, is basically structured by thematic areas and cross-cutting approaches. So in the first round of breakouts, you will have a chance to select a thematic area that you're particularly interested in and listen or engage with the lead for that session. And those are really designed to just have a very short presentation and ideally 10-15 minutes of discussion among a smaller group of people. Then we come back together in plenary, and the session leads will give a quick overview of the highlights from their sessions so that we can all benefit and get an idea of what was discussed in sessions that we were not able to attend. We'll hopefully have time for a short break then, and then we'll go into a second round of discussions. Again, we'll have several presentations with the chance to respond, ask questions, make comments, and then we'll break out again, and this time by our cross-cutting themes. And then shortly before 4 o'clock, it's time to wrap up. And I hope most of you can stay on until then, but we've also structured in such a way, understanding that maybe some do have to leave early. There will be follow-ups to these meetings, and especially an invitation to join the Institute. But all of that will be explained. And I would like to invite you, Scott, now to take the microphone and make some opening remarks. Thank you for being here today. We really, really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to be here. And knowing about this meeting and meeting with the board previously, I really wanted to come on today just to reiterate my support for everything that you are all doing. This is a very important part of IFAS and where we see things going in the future. Okay. It's clearly quite multidisciplinary on purpose, and I think very much needed. I see this as, in many ways, the future of a lot of how we're going to be working together. I was a active scientist in the 70s and 80s and 90s when, frankly, the problems were a lot simpler. It was not necessarily easy, but most scientists did not work in collaborative teams or cooperative teams. They got the work done that they needed to do, but the problems that are left are much deeper. They need a lot more thought, and they need a lot of interdisciplinary work associated with it. And so knowing about FSI and where you're going and the reasons that it was set up, these decisions were made long before I arrived as vice president for IFAS, but it's very much appropriate. It's needed. It is well organized. It's off to a good start. It has good leadership. So I could not be more supportive of what all of you are doing. I look forward to remaining part of the group that will at least be there to watch and to provide advice and consultation and support as all of you needed. Again, we have all of our problems that we have left to feed the world. And I don't want to go through all that. You all know the challenge that we have. But the problems that are left are complicated, and it's going to require the multidisciplinary approaches that FSI has established. I think it's very much a model for the future. I suspect you're going to have lots of competition over time because every other university is going to see this as something that they need to be doing to solve the problems that remain. So we'll be out ahead of them. We'll be just fine. And I think the University of Florida, particularly because it's, let's face it, we're highly ranked. IFAS is probably ranked number maybe 2 or 3 in the country, number 4 in the world. We're a large organization. You can't be multidisciplinary unless you have a lot of disciplines, which we do. Because we're in Florida, we have areas and capacity that no one else in the United States, maybe Hawaii, will have the ability to do. So we have a lot of unique advantages here. There, in some ways, they're unfair advantages for all of us, but we got them nonetheless, and we're going to use them to solve the problems that are needed. So glad to be with you today. Thank you for inviting me to be here. I just want to finish up by, again, reiterating my absolute solid support and at a lot of different levels for Bola as the leader. You've got phenomenal leadership. It's not just you, it's your staff as well. For the concepts that were developed, as I said, before I even arrived, and for the things that you will be doing. So it's the right organization at the right time. So look forward to being a part of this.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And with that, I'd like to hand the mic over to Dr. Bola Adesogan, and who's the director of the Food Systems Institute. So Bola, the mic is yours.
Thank you, Andrea. Thank you so much, Scott, for your warm words, for your support of the Institute. Like you said, the concept for this Institute was, this was from the deans, the IFAS deans, and the previous senior vice president, Dr. Jack Payne. And this Institute is emerging at a very auspicious time with COVID and disruptions to food systems, the need to feed the world, the threats of climate change, and so on and so forth. So what I'm going to do is just tell you a little bit about the Institute, how we're structured. And today is really about showcasing a little bit, Andrea called it an appetizer, a little bit about the Institute in order to recruit more members. There's a tremendous capacity and expertise across UF. Many of you are working in this space, and we wanted to create a forum for bringing people together to collaborate in this space. So that's what we're aiming to do. So next slide, please. So a little bit about the background. Some of you are very aware of this and some of you are not. So this institute was created from a merger of what I call 2 powerhouses because of the capacity of the faculty in both of these units, and nothing to do with me, it's just the excellent faculty in both of these units. First of all, the Institute of Sustainable Food Systems. And this was formed in 2015 by bringing together people who are really at the top of their game, researchers with a worldwide, top tier reputation, and they brought them to UF to form this institute. And each of them is an outstanding scholar, and they continue to do outstanding work. And so that was one part of the Institute. The one thing that Dr. Payne and the deans were recognized was that each of those exceptional researchers was doing a phenomenal job. They continued to do it, but they wanted more interdisciplinary collaboration. The second entity was the Feed the Future Innovation Lab for Livestock Systems, which is a multidisciplinary team of faculty from across many departments at UF that focuses on intensifying livestock production systems in 8 countries, doing that in a sustainable manner in order to enrich the diets of infants, pregnant and lactating women, and poor people in general. And so this was the objective, and this group has been working collaboratively for the last 5 years. And USAID has just renewed the Livestock Lab for another 5 years. So these two groups were brought together to form FSI. And we're very privileged to have, a tremendous group of faculty who have put a great foundation in place for this institute. Now, despite the great capacity we have, we recognize that there's so many more very, very capable people, excellent scientists out there across UF. And what we wanted to do is to invite them to participate, to join with us, to strengthen what we're doing. Next slide, please. So FSI is comprehensive in outlook. We are looking at issues here in Florida, issues across the US. And then, of course, we have a global reach, and many of our faculty work internationally and have great research programs across the world. Another big advantage is the scope in terms of the coverage of biophysical to social sciences. So whether it is to just look at strict scientific areas or to bring in anthropological areas or gender dimensions or equity dimensions, which are very critical to the issues we're facing today, we're able to work in those spaces. Another advantage is that we cover all the sources of nutrient-dense foods. And nutrient-dense foods is a critical area that we want to focus on, and you'll hear more about that today. And so we have experts from the crops, the livestock, and the seafood domains. But there are many more people at UF working in these areas, and we would love to have you participate with us. Next slide, please. So the vision of the Food Systems Institute is to develop transformative and sustainable research-based solutions that enhance nutrition, health, livelihoods, and the environment across the world through improved food systems. And we have come up with a 3-part mission statement that reflect our 3 areas of focus of research, teaching, and outreach. Please, next slide, please, Andrea. So first of all, we want to conduct transdisciplinary research on critical food systems issues. And we want to work in a way that is transformative, that pushes beyond the frontiers of current knowledge. But we also want to make sure that we do a great job with education and extension. So we want to develop transdisciplinary curricula and training for stakeholders across food systems. And we want to translate science to stakeholders and promote the adoption of improved practices and technologies. Thank you. So we're working on our 3 mission areas, and each of them is equally important to us. Next one, please. We've come up with 4 thematic areas, and we have 3 cross-cutting, we have a series of cross-cutting approaches as well. And for each of these, we have faculty leaders who you will be hearing from today. So we'll be going into breakout sessions, and during these breakout sessions, you can hear more about these areas, and you can talk about what you do in these spaces. You will have an opportunity to choose which one you want to join in. And as we mentioned, these are just appetizers. So the plan is that we will then have follow-up meetings where we can go into much more discussions later on within these thematic areas. so that we can form teams and go after grants and write papers and so on. But the thematic areas are global food and nutrition security, food production and distribution systems, health, economics, livelihoods and society, and food production and the environment. And then our cross-cutting approaches, next one, please. We've got metrics and tools, and then inclusion and equity, human and institutional capacity building, and then adapting and resilience to emerging issues, and finally, that enabling environment that is so critical for ensuring that the research doesn't just remain as research, but it has a true impact. Next one, please, Andrea. So we really want to focus on a systems approach. And if we look at those 4 dimensions, so we have food systems that are aquatic or terrestrial, but we're thinking about the environment, we're thinking about human nutrition and health and livelihoods. So we want to explore the interactions, the trade-offs, and the synergies that lead to better human health, better environmental health, and improved livelihoods. We want to identify priority systems and problems and then deploy to tackle them. We want to come up with tools and metrics that help us look at how we can achieve those outcomes. For instance, something like sustainable intensification or carbon neutral, maybe even carbon positive food systems. And then finally, generating the evidence that would drive policies that will lead to the changes that are needed. So next slide, please, Andrea. I'm going to now talk a little bit about, what's in it for you and why would you want to join? Well, before I do that, first of all, today is a huge opportunity for us. And we're hoping that some of you will decide to join us to strengthen this Food Systems Institute. We're currently approved at the IFAS level, but our goal is to be a campus-wide institute, and we have strong support from IFAS and the university administration to achieve that goal. We're just waiting to recruit more members before doing that. So we also have an opportunity to raise funds together through grants, through donations, our fundraising campaign, and so on, to really grow and sustain the work of this institute. And our ultimate goal is to establish a strong global presence as the premier institute in this space. We want it to be that in some time from now, a short time, hopefully, when people are thinking of where is the go-to institution for research, for extension, for education in this space, in the food system space, they think it's at UF. So we're inviting you to join us in this effort and help us achieve this goal. The next slide, please, Andrea. So we're inviting you to join us because this is an opportunity to collaborate with excellent faculty with stellar reputations. They've been, brought in multi-million-dollar grants. We'll be providing research seed funds. We have a call out. We're looking for strong proposals that we can fund for people to work in interdisciplinary teams in this food system space. We'll be providing assistantships and top-ups, funds for new initiatives. We'll be hosting symposia on emerging hot topics. And we really want to develop some new interdisciplinary courses that will help our students to understand how to tackle some of those challenging problems that affect society. Now, we have 2 levels of membership. Not really levels, but options. You can become a core member or an affiliate member. And you can see all for core members, all those items apply. But for affiliate members, several of them do, but they won't participate in governance, in leading our focal areas. They can participate, they're welcome to participate in faculty meetings. So that should be entirely left to the individual, but they don't have to. We do, of course, expect IDC contributions, and I need to stress that this is not the faculty members' IDC contribution. The deans have finally kindly allowed a portion of their IDC to go to selected the designated institute. So that's what we're talking about here. And then the affiliate members don't have to have their contributions annually evaluated. So the choice is entirely up to you. And we hope that you will follow up with us by selecting to be in one or the other category. And I think the last slide, please, Andrea. So how can you join? Some of you have already received an invitation. Please just get back to us with your preference for those two membership categories. If you haven't and you would like to join, we would love to have you. Please send us your CV, let us know what you work on, and let us know what type of membership you are interested in. So with that, I'm going to pass it back to Andrea. We have a great lineup of speakers, faculty that I'm very honored to work with, who will be speaking to us for the rest of our time. Thank you very much.
Yeah, awesome. And if you have any questions about what Bola said, please put them in the chat. We don't have time to really do a big discussion now, but we could maybe even go back to some key questions towards the end of today's event. But without much further ado, let me hand the mic over to Ari, and just let me know when you want me to advance the slides. So here we go. Ari, food systems and human health.
Thank you, Andrea. Yeah, I think you can show the first slide already. So thinking about food systems and human health, I actually go back to work that I've been involved in quite some time ago at my former institute, RIVM, the Dutch National Public Health Institute, based on a little booklet written by the then Canadian Health Minister Lalonde, who for the first time, you could say, developed a systems approach to public health. And this has been underpinning the public health forecasts that RIVM has been doing since the mid-1990s. And we adapted it at some point to have a closer look at how food and human health interact. And I think this diagram is still very relevant when you think about the systems approach to food and health. So there are four major boxes here. First one is health policy. In the end, everything that we do is under some kind of a policy framework, and for food and health, the health protection through food safety and health promotion through promoting healthy diets are important components. So health policy tries to influence the determinants of public health in the healthcare and prevention settings, where of course also somatic and mental health care are important, not directly influenced by food policy, but affected by health policy in general. And all these determinants, you can split them up into what we call exogenous determinants, so things in the physical world around us, or personal factors at different levels, basically related to genetics or to behavior or physiology. And all these factors, of course, interact. The exogenous determinants, a lot of it is in the food supply. When you think about food and human health, what kind of products can we use for our diets? What is the quality? What is the safety? All those kinds of aspects are important. But as important is, how do people make choices? What are their eating behaviors? What are their preparation behaviors in the kitchen? Together, they define the diet. But again, these are not standing on their own. They are very much influenced by the whole socioeconomic environment. We know that peer pressure is an important determinant in food choices, but also income and all kinds of other factors. So ultimately, the social environment is a very important driver of healthy choices and thus of health through food. But all these factors work out differently in different individuals. So the personal factors, the genetics, the physiology, the underlying diseases, and indirectly the determinants of behavior that people have affecting their food choices, they all impact the final outcome, the final health status of individuals and of the population. So this is a very health-centric approach. An important box is to the left, the autonomous development. So these are aspects that are not directly influenced by the health system, by the health policy, but do affect the food system, the health system through food, importantly. So agriculture, environment, all these activities are in these autonomous developments, because obviously the food supply that is provided through agriculture and how other factors act on the agricultural system. So it would be probably a challenge for the Food Systems Institute to draw similar boxes for the food system and for the environment, and sort of work on a bigger picture that connects all these boxes together. So it's a very brief and quick introduction, but I only have 5 minutes, and I want to spend the rest of the time to sort of talk about, maybe ask you to think about where do you fit in this diagram, and who else that is not here today would also fit in. Thinking about myself, my work fits in the food safety domain. So I'm trying through supporting, to providing knowledge to health promotion, trying to improve the safety aspect of the food quality, ultimately, hopefully leading to people who suffer less from foodborne disease or other zoonotic diseases. But you can see that people from many different backgrounds, from more, say, health sciences backgrounds, people from social science backgrounds, they would all fit in here. So please think a little bit about where you fit in. Write it down in the chat. And I understood, Andrea, that Kathy will then pick 1 or 2 or 3 answers for a verbal response. Is that correct?
That's correct. And so, again, we're 125 people on this call now, and I may miss if somebody raises their hand. So if you have a question or comment, if you could please put it in the chat. But what's also good is, I mean, again, we want to really know what your interests are, and we are saving the chat. And so if you are very explicit about what your interests are with relation to what Ari just explained, please do put it in the chat so we can follow up. But I don't see any questions so far or comments. Just give you another minute. Oh, you're all so shy. There we go. Yep. Yeah. Soil health. How does soil health relate to this, Ari?
I think it would be somewhere in the agricultural domain. So it does influence agricultural production, and through the availability of food, or think about arsenic in food, in rice, which is a very important food safety aspect. So the soil quality can also directly affect food safety. So it does affect this system through these autonomous developments, I think.
All right, we have another chat box entry: climate change influencing agricultural livelihoods and the relationship to migration, transnational.
Yeah. So again, these would be in the autonomous developments box, again, affecting availability of foods and access to foods when you think about migration. I've actually seen a lot of people who are from more a health sciences background. So I would also invite them to look more, say, at the diagram that's on the screen and see where their work fits in. Are you in the policy part? Are you in the determinants part? Are you in the social environment, the lifestyle, the physical environment? I saw we had educators who might fit this lifestyle part, or maybe affecting the determinants of behavior. So I saw a lot of people in the chat who have very different backgrounds that could fit very well. And like Bola said, we are now mainly an IFES institute, but we really want to reach out across campus and build up relationships with the whole health sciences complex. So it would be great if people now, or thinking about this maybe again after this meeting, would identify themselves and say, hey, I see where I fit in, and I could actually make a meaningful contribution to this work.
All right, somebody asked, where does drinking water fit in?
Drinking water is from a legal perspective somewhat difficult. Drinking water that comes out of the tap is typically under environmental legislation. Drinking water in a bottle is under the food safety, the food regulations. So bottled water would fall directly in here. I would say, conceptually speaking, drinking water that comes out of the tap is basically the same. It's a direct determinant of exposure to toxic substances, but also, I mean, we know that drinking enough water is a very important health determinant. So availability of drinking water that definitely fits in, say, in this framework. So it would probably fit in both the health promotion and the health protection, the availability, thinking also about water and sanitation related diseases. There's a term, water wash diseases, shigellosis, for example. It's very much determined by the availability of water. Can people practice hygiene? So absolutely, drinking water fits in this framework very well.
We have time. We have time for another one or two.
Okay, somebody noted that it would be interesting to see the orange box blown up as their feedback loops. For example, soil health is also affected by human behavior.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Like I said, it would be great if we could start thinking from the agricultural perspective on similar diagrams. I'm sure there are similar diagrams that do systems approaches to agricultural activities, and see how we can really link these two diagrams so that they become meaningful. Now it's just one arrow, but I'm sure that when you break up this box more, you will have arrows that lead much more directly into these different domains. So that might be a nice exercise for the Institute, or maybe for students to think about.
Mhm.
Okay, another entry is dietary patterns, periods of famine and food shortage, impact on health, methods of dietary assessment across lifespans.
Let me see, you were a bit quick.
Dietary patterns, periods of famine and food shortage, the impact on health, methods of dietary assessment across lifespan.
Yeah. So I think that's spot on in this diagram. Ultimately, the diet is say the central interface between food systems and human health. So it's partly determined by personal choices, but also determined by the whole say socioeconomic environment. Is food available? Is food accessible by other means? And that directly affects health. In the livestock lab, we don't really work on food shortages, but we do work on malnutrition from the perspective of, say, poor dietary quality, but also in the work that I'm doing, the way that pathogenic microorganisms affect gut health and ultimately affect the ability of individuals to absorb the food that they take in. So even a healthy diet in itself does not guarantee that there's not undernutrition. Because if the gut health is not proper, then the nutrients will not be taken up. And that now also becomes important in terms of microbiota. I know Monica Olli is in, so there's a direct link between the microbes in the gut and the ability to take up foods. And so that's also aspects that I think we can study in multidisciplinary teams.
And with that, I want to wrap this up. Kudos to all of you. I see that there's actually some really interesting contributions in the chat. You're not shy. That's appreciated. I'm just really sorry that we can't go and respond to each one of those, but I assure you we'll comb through the comments that you're making and follow up as appropriate. So with that, I would like to hand over to the next speaker, and that would be Greg. So Greg, who are you? And you've got the mic. If you'll introduce
Thanks. I'm assuming she'll tell me if she can't hear me. Thanks, Andrea. I'm Greg Kiker. I'm with the Agricultural and Biological Engineering Department, and I've had the honor to work with both FSI and the Institute of Sustainable Food Systems for quite a long time. And so, and as they come together, we're really seeing some wonderful kind of synergies just between the initial two groups. And so I think that there's a lot to be gained in, encompassing and sweeping in more perspectives and more people. And so one of the things that came up from when Institute of Sustainable Food System and Jim Anderson put on the big Future of Food conference, that one last, it seems like years ago, but it was just last year, we came up with this, we were talking about, and it was Luis Fresco, the president of Wageningen University, really highlighted this idea of circularity in food systems. And so that got us thinking. That was also along the lines of what Dr. Jim Jones in the crop modeling world out of ag and bioengineering had been bringing up and talking about as well with us. And so we started to adopt some of that idea towards, okay, what are circular food systems? And since it's a system perspective we'll talk a bit about what circularity is, it's still a very open question. We decided to bring this to the FSI to start working on it, because I think it's an inclusive concept. It brings people together. It's transdisciplinary by nature. Thanks, Andre, you read my mind. And so the idea is, how do we think of these integrated production systems? And some of you may have heard of things like James McDonough talking about cradle to cradle and life cycle analysis and all these different ways of thinking everything through. Zero waste, carbon neutral, low water footprint. Lots of these systems are starting to think broader in the way we do things, the way we make things, the way we produce things. And so how can we do this in a sense that is, and then finally, circularity is kind of the natural end to that. If it's sustainable, it has to be circular. It has to be, in a way, zero waste. It has to be using every part. And so we started looking at this, and as we started talking about this as a group, and we have some wonderful discussions in FSI. That's what's a lot of fun. We've had them in the livestock lab about animal systems worldwide. We've also had them in the Institute of Sustainable Food Systems about the systems, it's the food systems themselves. We started talking about, okay, what is circularity? And we're not going to define it for you all. That's the whole point of breaking this open to a wider group. Is circular systems, are they efficiency? Is there efficiency versus resilience versus circularity? A lot of us posit that food systems are quite efficient right now. They don't cost much. They're ready. You can get strawberries from all over the world delivered to you all year round. FedEx will bring them to you. Prime will bring them to you before tomorrow. So it's efficient, but it may not be resilient. As we started finding out with the pandemic and with ideas of that, we start to look at circularity and how that, what is that? What are we talking about when we talk about things like resilience or sustainability, and then taking it further to circularity? And so we started asking questions. A lot of us work internationally and locally. And so we said, okay, what are we talking about when we mean circular? Circular what scale? Is a farm supposed to be circular? Is a county or a region supposed to be circular? Is the state of Florida supposed to be circular? These are all open questions. We put it to the group because we haven't figured them out. But I think that these are great discussions for points of systems viewpoints. And if we're talking about circularity, who gets to be circular? Whom are we talking about? And the idea, or who are we talking about, to get it grammatically correct? The idea is, circularity is for whom? For what are we doing? Is it, is it a first world thing? Is it high tech? Is it something that we have, these great windmills and high tech things? Or is it low tech? Are pastoral systems in Africa, aren't they circular too? They've been circular for a long, long time. They've been efficient, and so we've started opening up discussions all over the place about this. And you're welcome to join us because we really want your inputs. And sometimes the engineers like myself are like, hey, just give us some more tech, we'll make this place circular. And yet that's not the case. There are social systems that are absolutely critical and actually need to be framed very clearly. Is circularity a social system approach, or is it an engineering approach? And we would say probably both, and yes. And so that's some of our context, is to bring that open. I'll show you one slide next, if you could pop to it. We've already been putting in, this was our attempt at a NEFA call just recently. A group of us started saying, what does circularity look like at the state level? What are we facing in this? And this is not the definition of circularity. This is a bunch of people thinking about it and being quite incomplete even right now. And so we have a state of Florida. I think, and Dr. Engel put this very clearly, that we have a very unique perspective. We have a thriving, strong agricultural system at Florida. We also have a growing state where everybody's moving here. We also have a state What's decreasing because there's sea level rise coming and the usual temperature, and we've had hurricanes and things like that. So there are stressors all over this state that are occurring. Some that are, that are global, other ones that are local. The fact that, these are 2070 maps in the corner, and a lot of developing land, a lot of agricultural lands turning into developed land. And that's even if we hold the protected areas. So again, and so we started thinking about cattle systems in here, dairy and beef production in the state. And we started thinking about what is a circular perspective to this. And Martin van Ederstrom had done some really nice work on the advantage of animal agriculture to use up certain aspects of biomass that isn't basically digestible by humans. And so he brought it up. And so we started thinking and riffing on this from a Florida perspective. And even then we didn't come close because people like Sarah McCune, Carla Shellnut brought up some wonderful things about what are the societal impacts of circularity? What's this going to do for things like food deserts and inequality of access? And so these are wonderful ideas that we're just starting to get our heads around. And so you can see us, the different systems people all coming together to think about these ideas of how do we reduce greenhouse gases? How do we work with excess nutrients and environmental impacts? It's not a solved question. It's a question that's just begun. And so for the FSI side of this is we want to gather all these perspectives, and we don't think we're going to sort it all out. We're going to work on this together. And so this efficiency versus circularity question really just starts to ask some of these basic questions towards that. But as Andrea well knows, I can talk for a long time and get more and more excited. So I'd like to stop there and just open up the group to some of these kind of concepts and ideas for what people think. And thanks.
And again, don't be shy. Circularity, have you encountered that before? Any big questions about that or great ideas?
Some people have been bringing up in the chats that they're doing some coursework on this. And I think that's a really strong beginning point to start to integrate and work around these different courses. I know different people are offering them over different aspects. And I think that's a really great place to begin to bring in students and perspectives on this.
Mm-hmm.
So I have maybe a question or a comment on just the idea of circularity, or how you've described that we don't know what it means yet, or we don't have one definition because there's an engineering definition, there's an economic definition, there's a social science type definition. And I think we struggle a lot with interdisciplinary or multidisciplinary research because we don't have a good grasp on terminology at the outset. So I've in working with materials scientists in Europe, they brought in an ontology expert at the beginning of the project to sort of do that. And I don't know if we have the resources to do something like that, but I think ontology is something that we should think about at the outset as opposed to at the end when we're determining what is our definition of these things. Because in any webinar or that I've done or that others have done related to the pandemic, it keeps coming up: the circularity, risk, resilience, robustness, reliability, sustainability. All of these things are sort of thrown out as meaning the same thing sometimes, but they have their own definition and mean something different. So I would just encourage us to think more broadly about the terminology while we're doing it.
Good point. But I'm afraid I'm going to have to hand the mic over to Jim Anderson, the next person. So thank you so much, and feel free to continue to submit your comments and suggestions. So Jim, if I may hand the mic over to you now.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep, very well, thank you.
Okay, I want to take a few minutes to talk about basically food from the sea and talk about what we're doing at SFI regarding that. First of all, what I'm going to give is an overview of the scale of importance of the seafood sector and the trends for the future, and then what we're doing. But while we take a minute on that first slide, can you go back to the cover a second? I just want to there's 4 pictures there that are interesting. That one in the little canoe up in the side is a Banju Gypsy Sea Gypsy. They harvest fish, which is actually sold in Miami. Then there's a guy from Vietnam. He's feeding tilapia there. Some of that fish ends up in Miami. Then we have a state-of-the-art shrimp aquaculture being done in Florida, there on the left corner, which is done homegrown shrimp. They just had their first harvest last month. And then we have a gigantic ocean-going sea cage that raises salmon off of Norway. All those fish end up potentially in Florida or the United States. This is a global industry, but it's also an industry which has people who participate that are in Stone Age technology, true Stone Age technology, like that canoe, which are being ultimately sold into Miami, in fact, from that canoe. I've actually talked to that guy who owns that canoe, and to space age technology. I mean, it's truly space age technology. So next, please. This is the slide summarizing the harvest of seafood around the globe. And we can see right now about 52% is coming from aquaculture and about 48% from the wild fisheries. And that is expected to be about much more from aquaculture, as 2/3 from aquaculture by just 2030. But let's skip the next slide. We look at the wild fishery. Basically wild fisheries have been more or less flatlined for about 3 decades. And the studies that I've seen that look at the global supply, the best we can expect if all fisheries are managed beautifully is about 10 to 20% more fish from the wild fish stocks. So they are not the future. Managing them better is the future, better for the environment and better for a lot of things, but they're not the future when it comes to future supply. The future is aquaculture. And next slide. As you can see, aquaculture is the fastest growing food sector in the world. Aquaculture passes beef now, passes red beef now, and will continue to pass red beef. So this is a big issue, and it's a global issue. I want to point out that of that aquaculture supply, most of it is produced in the developing world, and even the wild side, most of it is produced in the developing world, and it's being shipped all over the world. About nearly 40%, my interconnection is unstable. Nearly 40% of the supply enters into international trade. Am I coming across okay? I got a note that my internet connection was unstable. It's okay. Okay, about 40% of that supply, which is primarily harvested in developing countries, enters international trade and is sold into Japan and United States and Europe. And about 60% of that international trade is from developing countries. So you should see that, 1, we have a really complex system with many technologies. 2, we have a global system. 3, we have a system which affects international stability and food security, because obviously we're trading stuff from developing countries to developing countries. And we obviously have an environmental issue. And I look at that one picture there. That's ponds on the coast in China, in fact. Clearly, we don't want to do aquaculture that way, but so there's an environmental issue too. Next picture. So when we break it down a little bit, something that people here in the United States understands, that we look at salmon aquaculture, shrimp aquaculture, and tilapia aquaculture. Tremendous growth there. And matter of fact, the growth of aquaculture really shows up in U.S. consumption. If we look at our top 5 species we eat in the United States, about 72% comes from the top 5 fish, and salmon is number 2, shrimp is number 1, and tilapia is number 4, and catfish and pangasius is number 5. Very few wild fish and things we're eating these days. And look at that growth. The question is, can that growth continue? And what kind of system can support that growth? And is that growth circular, as they like to say? And of course, that's something the seafood world is considered all the time, because we harvest a lot from the environment. Next. And one of the other areas which is pretty much forgotten, especially here in the Western world, is the aquaculture and farming of seaweeds and algae. Seaweeds are nutrient-rich foods, both for animals and for humans. They can be used as food. They can be used to sequester carbon. And if they're using livestock feed, especially cattle, they say it can reduce greenhouse gases coming from the cattle. So we have a lot of exciting things here that raise from, it's not just fish and shrimp, it's also seaweeds. And we should really start to think about seaweeds as a nutrient-rich option. Next. So what are we doing? Right now, we've got basically 4 big thematic areas within the seafood sector. We're looking at disease risk, both on the human side and the aquaculture system side. We've done some work on looking at risk of disease in shrimps in particular, aquaculture systems, but also foodborne diseases that humans can have through and how the risk changes through the value chain and how the risk changes depending on the outlet and source of the seafood and also type of seafood. So that's really interesting stuff and very important stuff since much of the foodborne disease actually comes from the seafood sector. We are obviously doing a lot of work on market analysis and economic analysis related to systems and consumer behavior when it comes to their choices of seafood or choices of other foods. And then we've got a big project looking at the nexus of water, energy, and food waste for seafood. And we're looking at how seafood has been shipped in from Vietnam, seafood coming from Norway, seafood coming from Alaska, and we're keeping track of the energy, the use, the water use, and the actually loss of food and nutrients through the system. So that's a really interesting sort of a life cycle project. And the last one is looking at some new metrics. When we look at seafood and the fish systems, they really haven't been properly researched when it looks to the economics, the social, and environment together. We're looking at sort of a triple bottom line comparison of fishery systems and aquaculture systems, and ultimately we'll compare that to agricultural systems. And so we've got a big project there, and we've assessed probably on the verge of 200 systems around the world for their triple bottom line thing. And so there's a lot of opportunity to do research there and to learn from that. So I hope some people who are listening are interested in getting involved with us. And we already have a very active core team with a very interesting set of projects. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, so any key question to Jim? We do have time for 1 or 2 questions or comments. I don't see anything yet, but the affirmation that seafood waste is a large-scale unsolved problem. Any questions or comments?
Jim, I have a question on the graph that you showed at the beginning where you showed the growth of aquaculture with the wild catch.
Right.
Was that fish? Okay, it's fish and shellfish. Okay, I just needed to know if we had fish and shellfish or it was only shellfish.
And there's no algae, seaweeds in that picture. That's fish and shellfish.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, I really enjoyed your presentation and my research is on seafood, but I was wondering if FSI is gonna get involved in alternative seafood, any research and effort to product products such as cell-based or plant-based seafood?
Well, we actually had I've had some interactions with people, the companies that are actually doing that. We do not have any research currently going on cell-based seafoods or cell-based proteins, as far as I know, but that's certainly a cool area. And if we can team up with the right experts, I'm sure that there could be some really interesting projects there.
We do have for 1 comment, Kathy, you want to pick that up?
Sure. Yeah. Somebody asked about the contamination of marine environments, plastics, for example, and the changes due to acidification.
Well, certainly those are happening, and those are big issues. And they affect the food system. And some of these food systems are more adaptive to those things than others. However, basically the bottom line is you have to solve that problem. And the plastics problem in particular is primarily a problem, obviously, of our distribution system, not just food distribution, but all products. And it's really a problem of the developing world. Most of the plastics which actually enter the ocean are coming from the developing countries, which don't have the capacity to deal with this. And that's a really important area that places like the World Bank should get their act together and pay a little more attention to. But it's an externality primarily to the seafood industry, a negative externality, which they really don't have. That industry doesn't particularly have the ability to address by itself. It's bigger than.
So I see some people are unmuting themselves. Unfortunately, we do have to move on to the next one. But thank you very much. And please continue to put more comments and questions in the chat. So we're almost ready to go over to the breakout sessions. You should be seeing choices popping up, which room you want to join, and you can self-direct. If you have difficulties, you can change your Zoom name and put the letter that you want to join in front of it, and I can put you in there manually. But I just wanted to give our 4 session leads a chance to make a quick pitch while people are selecting to go into the room. So if one after the other, you could please make the pitch for what your session will be about.
Okay, so I guess I'm starting, Andrea, since I'm the first one on the list. So we're going to be talking about global food and nutrition security, the theme and kind of how we see the domain. But our big question, at least in my point, is that I want to get input on how we attract folks from a broader group across campus versus more of our traditional IFAS players. Not that we don't want those folks from IFAS, but we wanted to obviously get this theme more broadly distributed across campus.
Frank?
Hi, I'm Frank Ash. I'm going to lead the group in food production and distribution systems. As you can see, this is a very broad topic. I guess all the topics are really broad, but we're going to go all the way from pre-production and the knowledge building into food production and how to either produce food that provides accessibility or to distribute food that provides accessibility. And as Jeff said, it's really important for us to find people who are interested and who would be interested in working with us.
Just a quick pitch, you should be seeing a list of options to go to. If you don't see them at the bottom bar of your Zoom session, you should be able to click on that little breakout symbol, and then they should appear. Next one, Connor and Sarah, could one of you please do the pitch for your session?
Hi, so we're going to be looking at the nexus of markets, agricultural production, gender, and nutrition at the levels of systems, consumers, as well as producers. And it's going to be so much fun.
And health. That's
and health. And health. Yes.
That makes it even more fun. And Cheryl, what's
Yeah, hello everybody. So I'm going to be working with Anna Martin and Zinette Voss. We're going to talk about food production and the environment. We're going to talk about the two-way flows, how environment affects production, but how the production then affects the environment. And then we're going to look at the scales from field to landscape to global impacts of how what one farmer does might, or groups of farmers has impacts on the scale.
All good. Go ahead and go to your rooms now. I see a lot of people had already joined. So I will be sending a broadcast message 3 minutes before the session closes, and then another warning will go out 1 minute before it closes. Have fun. Yeah. So very quickly people are joining. Happy to see it.
Andrea, there's some issues with people not seeing the breakout rooms. Yeah.
Yep. So click on, you should see at the bottom bar, see if you can see that if you have a problem, I can also assign you. It'll just take me a little bit of a moment. Like Peter, I'm assigning you now. Trent, I'll be assigning you. Oh, I think you figured it out. So I'll be picking people right here. And Catherine, sorry, where did you want to go? See, okay. Catherine, I'll assign you momentarily. Yep, this works fine. Gabriel is D. We'll get there. Rosalie, I'll put you in B. Yeah, we're getting there. Fantastic. Sarah wants to go to D. Doing this really just takes a little bit of a moment. Here I'm going to.
Andrea, I had a quick question. If you're interested in two, can you go to one and then switch back to another one midway?
I think it makes more sense for now to stick just with one. We will have follow-up meetings, and so you will also have so let's say, we'll have follow-up meetings in March, and we'll let you know about all of them, and they will not take place at the same time.
Okay, yeah. I'm a student, so I'm just interested in both, but thank you.
So, yeah.
And hi, Andrea, this is Sanjay Shukla. I wanted to just go, I'm interested in the food and environment, but I won't be able to join too long, maybe for like.
That's fine, that's fine.
10 minutes or so. So
sure.
Could you?
I'll just put you there now. I'll just put you there now. Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Esteban, I'm going to put you in there too now. And let me see, I think they're just, I need to just check here. Jorge, I'm going to put you in C. Let me see, who am I missing?
Andrea, this is Clyde.
Yeah, Clyde, which one did you want to go to?
To D, please.
Clyde, why don't I see your name right now? Oh, there we go. You want to go to D, okay?
Yes, thank you.
Yep, got it.
Andrea, Matthews here. Could you move to A?
A you go.
Thank you.
Jeanette, which I know you posted something, but I can't see the chat right now. Where did you want to go, Jeanette? Trent, which one? I put you in B. Oh, B. Yeah, okay, there we go. Assign to. Thank you. I love that you followed the instruction with changing your Zoom name. Nargisa, where did you want to go?
D, please.
D.
And Jeanette wanted to go to A.
Thank you. Thank you very much for helping me out. Where did you want to go, Lacey?
I can go to C.
C and C. So we have
Andrea, this is Ann Matthews.
Yes.
Is A or C the one that's more health focused? I think it's
C,
A.
definitely C. Definitely C.
Okay.
Yep. So we have a few more. Andrew, where did you want to go?
Could I go to B, please?
Okay, B. And Daisy? Naeem?
And B, please.
B. Philip? Oh, Philip seems to be gone. Wonderful. What do we have here? Sarah, where did you want to go?
To B, please.
B you go.
Thank you.
Yep. And Philip, where did you want to go? Philip, Daisy, and Vartan, I haven't assigned yet.
B for me, please. Actually,
It's Bahir. Okay.
Please, yeah.
So who's this? This is Bahir, right? No, wait.
Here, yeah, the one with health, please.
Ah, Bahir. I think I put you in. Oh dear. There we go. Two C.
Yes.
There you go.
Yeah, C as well for me, please.
Daisy. Yep. I'll put you in C. And Douglas, where would you like to go?
Global food.
Okay, number 8.
No, health and economics, sorry.
No problem. Health and economics will be C, okay? So Vartan Shilia, sorry, I'm having problems with your name. Where would you like to go? And Philip, I think I have, and Douglas, I see you're not assigned yet. Let me see what's going on there. Most everybody is fine. Douglas, where would you like to go? I have you in C. Was that not correct?
Yes, you're right.
Just try. You should, if click on the yeah, there we go. Fantastic. So Philip and Vartan, where would you like to go? And you can also just hang out here if you prefer. Maybe you need to take care of something right now. I'll stop sharing for a moment. And Saskia, where did you want to go? Saskia, where would you like me to assign you to?
I was in group A,
Mhm.
I mean, I have internet problems, so.
Okay, would you like to, I'll put you back into it then, yeah?
No, I can go back there. I
Okay.
guess. Well, let me see which one has most people. See. Seems pretty even, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Calvin, okay.
Hello again. I don't know. I'll just stay here, Andrea. I don't know. I stayed for, I don't know, for several minutes, kind of, I got that screen like directing you to your breakout room, and then it just dropped. So I don't know if it's just the internet. Yesterday when we tried it, it was fine. I don't know why today it's not. I mean, I can try again at the risk of,
I think it's just you, because it's just you.
No, I mean, it is probably my internet connection, but it sucks because normally for these things I go to the office, and now internet has been behaving. So I thought, well, shall I go? Shall I not go? Well, I think I can take the risk. So yeah, I'm kind of disappointed that this is happening.
Hey, it's almost as bad as Germany. I don't know about Holland, but in Germany, we're always shocked just how poor the internet connection is.
Yeah, I think Germany is worse than the Netherlands. Funkloch.
Yeah.
Okay, let me try again.
Hi, Bola. How did that go? You're muted. You're muted.
It's going very well. I was in the
Good.
climate group. Can you put me? I want to join the health group, please.
Okay. Yep. Just a second. Move to health. There you go.
Thank you.
Carissa? Hi, did you just join? Did you leave a room and want to go somewhere else?
I actually just joined. I saw that Cheryl Palm was speaking. Her area of focus is food systems and the environment. So
I'll put you there. I'll put you there.
thank
It's
you.
just a few more minutes, but I'll put you there.
Okay, thank you.
Just need to accept it. And could be that you need to, yeah, you got it.
I just got out. Sorry, I left too early.
You left a bit too early?
Yeah.
How did it go?
Okay.
How did it go?
It was very good. I think we had some extra time. I was speaking and then I click on this to take it off. That's okay.
I'm just so scared of clicking the wrong button because as a host, I can by mistake end the whole thing.
I know. That would be a much larger consequence than what I did.
Yes. Yeah, cool. Clyde, what's your field?
I'm in ag engineering, agrometeorology.
That's a very diverse department.
Yeah, it is.
Very diverse, very diverse.
It's a very interesting department, I think, because
We got kicked out of our breakout rooms.
Yep, I know. You got a 3-minute warning by me, and then you were kicked out by the system with a 1-minute warning.
But weren't we supposed to have 20 minutes?
Pardon?
Sorry, we thought we were supposed to
But
have.
it actually, you had 12 minutes. I know, it seems awfully short. Time just flies when you're having fun.
Yeah, I thought it was supposed to be 20 minutes. Anyway, we had a Fast and Furious.
Fast and Furious.
So where are the other people? Are they all getting 20 minutes?
No. Everybody's treated the same. Everybody's treated the same. No, 2:15 until 2:30 is the plenary. This is like somebody grabbing your plate, you know, and you're sitting in a restaurant and, you know, already coming and clearing your table. It's like, hey, I'm still eating. Okay, let me see how people should be all back now. I don't quite, let me see how we're going. Okay.
105 people, so we're going to lose a few. They said from my group, some people had to drop out, so we're probably
Sure,
close.
and we sort of knew that there would be some people who could only stay for the first half. But let me see, Saskia, are you back on? And
I am, yes.
Yes,
It's
cool. So
working
I'm going to
fine.
let you lead the moderate the plenary session.
Okay, great. Let's get started. I'd like to hear from the first group, Global Food and Nutrition Security, Greg or Jeff, or maybe you have designated someone. If you could give us really some key insights, don't give us who said what, but really what are the main points from this group that you would like to share with the rest of the participants?
That would be Greg.
Okay, we just began. So that's the good news. There's lots of good ideas. We didn't hear from everybody because, but yeah, they were bringing up this idea of ideas like how do we using, you know, acreage, nutrients per acre instead of yield per acre. And some of this idea of trying to integrate in kind of emerging in currents and emerging pests into a more food system structure. So trying to gather kind of disciplinary perspectives into a greater whole. That's pretty much what I got besides the details.
Okay, and just to give us an idea, how many people more or less were in your group?
16, 17.
Okay, great. Wonderful. Jeff, would you still have a few minutes? Are you okay with the overview from Greg, or you would like to add something? I saw that there were many colleagues from Animal Sciences there, not surprisingly perhaps. Did you also speak to other people?
Yeah, there were, and most of our conversation was not among, it was among the non-animal scientists in the group.
Wonderful.
So that's good. Yeah, I mean, my question was, and we didn't get, we got some input on this, but you know, I think that to me, this is a recurring theme. We've got a lot of folks, as I said, from IFAS, and you saw in our session a lot from Animal Sciences. How do we broaden our interaction? How do we attract more people and pull more people into what we're doing? Because, you know, the sorts of questions that we're trying to tackle and that are going to be interesting to tackle are going to require a broader perspective. And so, you know, that's one of the things I'm not sure we got as much thought from. So as we go through the rest of the plenary, if people have ideas on that, I would encourage them to sort of push those ideas to the front.
Excellent, thank you for that. Okay, let's hear from the second group, Food Production and Distribution Systems, Frank or Karen.
Hear me okay? Great. Yeah, so that was a really interesting quick discussion. And if I summarize in 3 main points, there was I think probably a lot more, but one main point, as we were talking about costs and benefits, was the idea of different perspectives on costs and benefits. So that being the benefit of interdisciplinarity to understand different ways that costs and benefits of food production and distribution systems can be defined. So I thought that was an interesting, good point. A second good point would be the importance of extension links for FSI. That's something that we could build on more, right? And in Florida and also internationally, more links with extension. And then a third point, which also relates to extension that we could think about more is like FSI could provide like one part of its service to the community for extension as well as research would be to help define like what is a systems perspective, because that seems like that's a common question, like what does it mean to take a systems perspective versus not a systems perspective, or what is systems thinking? So I thought those were 3 particular interesting points that came up. One, the idea of interdisciplinary perspectives on costs and benefits. 2, FSI thinking more about links with extension, and 3, the FSI could help stimulate thinking about what is a systems perspective.
Great. Thank you for that and for keeping it very brief. Just did you have a chance to look at the number more or less of participants you had in your group?
I'm not sure, 20 or so.
Okay, great. So also a good figure. Wonderful. Frank, would you like to add something?
No, I thought that was great.
Wonderful. Thank you both. Okay, let's move to the third group, health, economics, livelihoods, and society. A mouthful. Connor or Sarah?
Yeah, I'll take a stab at this. First, my apologies to the group because we did not get to open dialogue. We did get to hear from Kathy Striley about Health Street and the potential synergies with Health Street, which I think are really important and should be noted. There are also comments that everyone can now see in the chat, which I think is the beginning of feedback to what we shared. And I think I would highlight a contribution from Ari that says, parts of what we had presented intersect well with sort of his diagram at the beginning, but one of the elements that's missing is the biomedical aspects between food and health. So that's something where we need contribution from other parts of campus, as well as health policy and thinking about at a regulatory level what the intersections would be. There's also comments from Becky Williams, who was part of that group, saying that we need to make sure that we take a systems approach to make sure that the social scientists across campus are engaged in the dialogue. And I'm sure there's more. Most of it at this point is in the chat. We were about 20 people in the room, and Connor and I will follow up with everyone who's interested in this domain, but my sincere apologies that we didn't get to open forum.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Yeah, yeah, you always need more time. We could easily spend 3 hours talking, but please remember, this is really kind of the kickoff, the start of further interactions. This is really just to see, you know, to quote Andrea, the appetizer and the main course and better things are yet to come. So just keep sharing in the chat for now, and then in the next few weeks or months, definitely we will be having some follow-up interactions. Last but not least, I would like to give Cheryl the floor. She will give us a brief overview then of the discussions in the food production and the environment group.
Yeah, well, we had a very exciting, very fast and furious discussion that I think was getting quite exciting, but Anna Martin is going to give us the summary points.
Okay,
Hi,
great.
I'm Anna Martin from Ag and Bioengineering. So in our group, Cheryl gave a nice introduction to food production and the environment, and highlighted the fact that it's really a two-way connection, that food production impacts the environment and the environment impacts food production. And so we kind of need to think about both of those aspects. We highlighted the carbon footprint associated with food production, that production really makes up the largest footprint in terms of carbon when we look at the food system. But also there was a lot of discussion in the group that sometimes looking at carbon footprint is too narrow, and we need to really identify what are the most critical impacts associated with the food system, and maybe that's different for different commodities. I think there was agreement that the water footprint is critical and maybe a good place to start. We also talked about considering the nutrient density of different foods when we kind of assess their sustainability. Biodiversity as another potential impact. And also plastics in the environment was brought up, that we use quite a bit of plastic in producing fresh produce, and that we need to start considering maybe the impacts of plastics and microplastics from food production on the environment. Yeah, I think that's kind of where we got with our quick discussion.
Oh, fantastic. I'm just looking at the time. We have 5 minutes left. I'm sorry we chased you all out of those out of the discussion groups, and now we have the luxury that we have 5 minutes left. Other comments from other, you know, having heard this feedback now that you would like to immediately react to, or I don't know, Cheryl or Bola perhaps, you know, you would like to comment. You have been, of course, the brains behind the whole setup of the institute, and just some initial thoughts on this. You have 4 minutes now.
I think this is great. Again, I apologize that you were pulled out of those discussion groups maybe too early, but this is the whole idea here is to whet your appetite, and the whole idea is to come back in a few weeks, bring those people in that breakout group back together so that you can continue the discussions and think about what priorities in this food systems place you should be focusing on as a group, and who else should be brought in, who else from across campus should be invited to join this group. So please think about that and follow up with us. Some of you have already let us know that you will be joining, and we are grateful for that, but think about some of your colleagues that we need to bring in as well. And please continue to comment in the chat box. This has been great. Thank you.
Wait, Bola, just don't disappear as of yet. Becky Williams again. Becky has a long history also, of course, with the food system, with the Livestock Systems Innovation Lab. But she is asking, is FSI at all, is FSI aiming at all towards smallholders and issues of land tenure and use, resource access, etc., or aiming more at broad systems?
Yeah, that's a good question. Thank you, Becky. FSI wants to, we want to have different teams that focus on different systems. So we will have some of our, several of the faculty at the university work on issues to do with food systems in Florida. Some of them work with some of the small-scale farmers here. Some of us work with small-scale farmers across the world. Some of us work with big, much bigger farmers. So the beauty of having other faculty join is that it brings that ability to deploy across those different systems. So we don't intend to be exclusive. We don't intend to focus on only one group of farmers. And so I think it'll be great to have as many of you join as possible.
Great. Thank you very much for that quick reaction, Bola. With this, I will really wrap this up and hand over to Andrea, and I think it's up to Kathy right now. Over.
Yes, it is. So thank you. Thank you very much, Saskia, for bringing it all together. And, we realized that some people may not be able to stay on for the full program. So we wanted to make sure that for those of you who are not able to come back after the break, you get the most important information that Kathy will be presenting next.
Hi, I just wanted to let everybody know that you can visit our website, which is on the screen right now, and sign up for our newsletter. And the newsletters will include news, upcoming events, grant opportunities, everything related to FSI. Also, there's a lot of other information on the website, including the people section where you can learn more about everybody. And we also have research areas online. So definitely go online and explore our website. You can also find links to our Twitter and Facebook accounts if you're interested in following us on social media. And we really hope that you consider joining as a member, and there'll be more explanations on the differences between the affiliate and core membership towards the end of the workshop. And if you're interested, either follow up with me after the workshop or respond to the follow-up email. But that's all. Thank you.
Now I feel really bad for having pulled your discussion session earlier because we are now way ahead of schedule. But my suggestion is the following. Let's go ahead and take a short break, just if you need to take rest or whatever. And let's be sure to come back in 5 minutes. So let's be back here at 2:35. That gives us more time for the upcoming breakout, so we don't quite need to be so rushed.
Andrea, before we go, can I ask a quick question?
Please.
So
Yes,
I would like to keep the dialogue going, and in the interest of that, kind of strike where the iron is hot.
Yep.
Do you want people to just follow up with Kathy, or Sarah and I were talking? We're thinking about if people who are in our session could email us. Maybe we set up a Teams channel. I don't know, but. Because we didn't really get to talk at all, but I think there are a lot of people who are interested in our theme as well as others.
Yeah, fantastic. So thanks for bringing that up. I took a snapshot of, this group had these participants, so I know exactly who was where.
Okay.
And we have the registration list. So one of the things I will be able to do is, like in an example of you and Sarah, I can actually send you the emails and names of people who are in your session. But there are also people who would have loved to be in your session and they didn't have a chance. So it's like, how would we even know about this? So those of you on the call here now who said, oh, I wish I could have talked to Sarah and Connor, do take the initiative and just reach out to them.
Yeah.
We will get together end of next week, sort of the people organizing this event and speaking at this event. We have a follow-up meeting that will be either Thursday or Friday afternoon, and we will talk through exactly the kind of points you just raised, Connor, because we, and again, this also depends on the feedback that you as the participants are giving us now. What makes most sense? We definitely want to keep up the energy, and we are planning to have more in-depth sessions on these themes going forward, and all of that will be systematically planned when we come together end of next week. Thank you.
Sorry for interrupting you. I just wanted to get that out before people started leaving in case they do leave.
No, it's all fine. It's all good. It's all good. It's all good. Yeah. So, hey, and just, feel free to be social and make some comments, unmute yourself and say a few words. We'll start again in about 5 minutes with the formal part, but don't be shy. Still have just about almost 100 people on, which is great. If I may bring something up that really struck me from the reporting back about the importance of engaging with extension. And Bola, if you can talk about when it comes to membership and joining FSI, I think sometimes people are like, well, I'm not a research faculty, so how do I fit in with the FSI?
Yeah. So, one of the things that Jeff Dahl and I has been one of our pet peeves over the years with the livestock lab that we work with is that the focus is research, the mandate is research. But in the developing world, as it is here, without extension, the research stays on the shelf. So extension is going to be an extremely important part of what we do in the Food Systems Institute. And we really welcome and appreciate those of our extension faculty and colleagues who are on the call today. And we want to look for ways to engage and deploy and to serve the state of Florida much more effectively in this space. So extension is a key component of what we do. We want extension faculty and agents as part of this, the Food Systems Institute. So please note that your contributions will be highly valued, and we anticipate and look forward to having a number of you as part of the Institute. Thank you.
And if I may add, just to stress, it isn't just about, oh, please disseminate what research is doing, but really be involved very early in the stages. In your positions, in your work, you see the world somewhat differently than those of us who are, more lab-based or more research-based. And you know what people are really hurting about, maybe some challenges we aren't even aware of. So it's doing things jointly and not sort of handing over to extension. Just to what
we can do all the research we want, but without extension, our impact is grossly limited, and so we critically, and I'm not just saying this to be nice, I really mean it. And Jeff Dahl and I often say that in many of the countries we work in abroad, if they would just focus more on extension, we would probably move the needle a lot more. So extension is really valued and appreciated. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's also a unique skill set. Moreover, you get to interact with the next generation through 4-H and similar programs that those of us who interact more with university students may not be so aware of. Yes. So some really good comments in the chat. Thank you. I appreciate that. And you know, with that, we have 95 people on, so let's continue. And again, we have a few appetizers that we want to offer you, with Sarah speaking about nutrient-dense foods, Renata just food systems, and then Karen about AI, big data, and food systems. And with that, I'd already like to hand over to you, Sarah, with your presentation. The mic is yours. Maybe Sarah, are you there? See, this is also if you diverge from the agenda, and people actually we'll wait for Sarah to come back. Any other questions, comments?
One thing I would just like to mention, there was some chat in the first session about courses, multidisciplinary courses. And thanks to those who indicated an interest in contributing. Please let us know in the chat or by following up with us if you are. We will be having separate sessions that will think about what courses should we be developing.
Yes, we had the food system. Cheryl mentioned that. What are some other course topics? This is actually a really good time to ask that question, Bola. Systems seminar. Well, Kate, yeah, that seems very appropriate. We use the term systems thinking so often already. Are we teaching on that? Do we have a full understanding ourselves? Yeah.
I mean, we're teaching it. We don't know if we have a full understanding, but we are teaching it. So the system seminar in environmental engineering has a long history with the Odum Center. It's a quite popular seminar for students across UF that would be relevant here.
Wonderful. So I see Sarah is there. Thank you. Sarah, you have the mic.
Great, thank you. So I just wanted to give everybody an appetizer here of one of the ways that the Food Systems Institute plans to contribute to broader research, and that's in this area of nutrient-dense food. So there have been great improvements in food security writ large in the past few decades, but nutritional security, and by that we mean the composition of the diet itself. So not simply caloric intake, but what's the composition of the food, what's the micronutrient composition, as well as protein, energy, and trying to understand what people actually eat and who eats what. So nutritional security remains a widespread issue, and this is true both in the US and internationally. One of the ways that we look at this is in a metric of what we call dietary diversity. And dietary diversity is widely understood to be low in low and middle income countries, particularly among the most vulnerable and the poor, but it's also low in this country, in communities who are impoverished or communities that are otherwise marginalized. So we can think about, in the language of sort of US nutrition and diet, we think about increasing fruit and vegetable intake, right? You can think about that as overlapping with this same area of interest. But we also do a lot of, and we're interested, there was a corpus of us at the University of Florida who's interested in nutrient-dense food that particularly come from livestock as well. So the energy of the livestock lab has really focused on trying to integrate milk, meat, and dairy products into the diets of vulnerable populations in those countries we work in internationally. Nutrient-dense foods are particularly important for certain populations. And in the work that we do in the livestock lab, that tends to be pregnant, lactating women and infant and young children. And this has to do with the dietary composition and needs of those individuals because of what is happening developmentally, the biologic functions at that moment in time or among those people. The same can be said about populations in this country. There's nothing magical about having an infant overseas versus having an infant in this country. And one of my favorite touchstones that I've stolen from a colleague is, to remember that a child's stomach is roughly the size of his or her fist. And so when you're trying to pack in as much punch as possible, as much nutrient diversity as possible in an infant or young child's diet, you don't have a lot of real estate. And so high highly dense, nutrient dense foods become really important to the overall health of those populations. Next slide. And keeping in the spirit of appetizers here, these are just some of the questions then that come out of an interest in looking at nutrient dense foods. So what are the constraints to consumption of nutrient dense foods? And for whom do these constraints exist? When do they exist? Are they all the time? Are they during crisis? Are they systematically during a crisis that arises each year at a certain time? So seasonality of food availability. Why do they persist? So what is it, when you take a systems perspective, we know that systems are dynamic, but you often get persistent blockages. So why are these persisting? What tools can improve access to nutrient dense foods? And we can think about it at the macro level, at a policy level, all the way down to the very micro, right? Which I often go to behavior change. Those two can be swapped. Policy can affect the micro level, and behavior change, it might be behavior of high level elites that really changes dynamics in a system. What gets funded, what gets prioritized. What's the distribution of the nutrient dense food production globally? This is something many of us within FSI are already beginning to take on under Pedro Sanchez's leadership. So thinking about where is this distributed and what would have to happen globally to distribute enough nutrient dense foods to get nutritional security at a global level. And then what trade-offs would have to be put in place in order to prioritize the production of nutrient dense foods, and not just animal source foods, but legumes and other things, in order to replace what is grown on a lot of the land globally, which is more cereal-based, grain-based. So those are just some preliminary questions, but with that, I also open it up. What are your reflections, your thoughts about nutrient dense food, and how have we not begun conceptualizing this? Feel free to use the chat or to just ask directly.
Can I add a comment here? So
please.
I'm Zineb from the ABE department. We have recent research we conducted last year. So looking at different ways of preserving the nutrients all the way along to the consumer, not from the nutritional profile of the final value, final product like fresh produce, right? Even though the nutritional composition of processed products may be a little bit lower at the retail stage, looking at the waste numbers and the amount of nutrition that is produced and delivered all the way to the consumer is significantly high, and the sustainability of nutrition is really high for processed products. So maybe looking at synergies between processing and packaging technologies with the nutrition aspects and consumer acceptability and the preferences, and improving the consumer acceptance of maybe minimally processed products or processed products that are still healthy for the communities. So that was my comment.
Excellent. Yeah, exactly. It's a great application to a domestic context, which is not where my bias lies, but really trying to incorporate this both locally as well as globally.
There's a comment in the chat box. Sorry, just rolled by a second. About opportunities. Oh my gosh, hang on. Here we go. Opportunities in hydroponics and controlled systems aimed at enhancing nutrient density of foods. When working in the private industry, this was the goal.
Yeah, absolutely. So just increasing the nutrient density in foods through different technologies. I saw another comment about soil health. We know that the nutrient density of foods is largely determined by soil health as well. So whether it's hydroponics or soil investment in soil quality, we can think about there are various innovations and technologies we can use at the production level to increase nutrient density in foods. I think it's important to map a distinction and to demonstrate interest in both optimizing the potential of any given food, optimizing the nutrient value of that food, so the production of a strawberry at its maximum form, but then there is also comparison of that food against another, right? So we can think about optimizing the nutrients of food so they're produced to their fullest potential, but at the same time, is that the food that needs to be produced at a macro level in order to get nutrients to the table at a population level?
It was also noted that a challenge is that the nutrient-dense foods are also causing, the most nutrient-dense foods are also causing the most foodborne diseases. Animal source foods have long been recognized as such, and increasingly plant-based foods are incriminated. Think romaine lettuce in the United States. So promotion of nutrient-dense foods also needs to go hand in hand with ensuring safety.
Yes, absolutely. I'm most aware of this in the space of animal source food, but for sure, I think holding on to a food safety lens in all of what we do is part of taking a systems approach. But that relationship that you underscore is interesting, and I candidly haven't heard it articulated in that way before. So I appreciate that.
One question that interests me is kind of isolating the effect of changes in prices or access to animal source foods, also looking at the effect of interventions that are meant to, induce behavioral change, looking at those two types of interventions in isolation, but also together. I mean, there is some evidence from, say, randomized placement of livestock transfers, looking at how that has affected consumption of animal source foods, but that's kind of, at the household level. Evidence on how prices at the market level affect consumption is more just looking at correlations or based on estimates that kind of have some questionable assumptions. And I've never really seen a credible study that looks at issues of prices and access and how they affect, at least in economics, how they affect consumption of nutrient dense foods, say with and without interventions that are designed to affect behavior with respect to consuming those foods. Anyway.
Yeah, excellent. And I think picking up, I'm following the thread while I'm listening, and I think that, one of the elephant in the room, not just for animal source foods, but also vegetable, plant-based nutrient dense foods is the carbon footprint. And so trying to think about whether it's, as Cheryl pointed out, the vegetables I'm giving them animation here, but vegetables that are nutrient dense often require more fertilizers, water, pesticides. So how do we produce the nutrient dense foods while keeping in mind circular systems, sustainability, reduced carbon footprint? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I interpreted that as carbon footprint, but if I misunderstood, Cheryl, you can correct me. Thank you. Almost like talking to yourself,
Yeah, so it's a system. So it's not just the carbon footprint. It is the water footprint, nutrient footprint, energy footprint, and vegetables and things like that often take more of all of those. So.
Okay, actually, the next presentation by Renata really picks up on another aspect of this. So Renata, if I may give the mic over to you now.
Great, thank you so much. Yes, so my presentation focused on another aspect that is crucial in our Food System Institute, and I'm sure in the research that a lot of people at UF at large do, which is that of justice, inclusion, and fairness in food systems. So let's look at these just food systems. Andrea, you can go to the next slide. And I'd like to start with the notion that I think we have learned during the last year, that these issues have become really prominent and in periods of crisis. And so during the pandemic, there's been a lot of discussion on, or a lot of awareness that issues of access to food and inequities in the food production system and distribution are particularly exacerbating during the pandemic. So to the left here, you've got a picture that I think we are all too accustomed to of a line of people queuing for food distribution outside Montgomery County Public Schools, and the right you have a first page of a report by the UNDP that calculates that the cost of food in poorer countries has been has been really spiraling up due to the combined effect of the pandemic with already fragile food distribution systems. So next slide, please. I just wanted to emphasize the centrality of these themes to all the things we have been researching in the ISFS and Livestock Innovation Lab, and we are planning to do in the FSI. So to the left, you've got a very simple graph. I'm not sharing any fancy graph like other colleagues of mine, because it's really difficult to represent these themes in a full way. But what this graph to the left want to portray is that at FSI, we really work on different and very important complementary themes that are partly object of presentation today. So the resilience, circularity, environmental sustainability, food security, health and nutrition and productivity, just among many. But really central to this is the aspect of fairness, inclusion, and justice. Or in other words, in order to increase the performance of food systems along any of these aspects of fairness and inclusion are really central for what we do. And we have been doing research both at local and global scales. And here to the right are just some of the dimensions. So they're not really research projects, it's more like dimension axis or lenses through which we can examine issues of equity. Of course, there is one is the differences in equities between rural and urban communities, something that in Florida is, for instance, very apparent to all people working in the state, and knowing, for instance, how food deserts are characterized and geographically positioned. But of course, these rural-urban differences exist in all different contexts. They are also important and deep and sharp inequities along racial lines, both in Florida and elsewhere, with African Americans and other minorities having either less access to food or access to poor quality food or more distant, etc. So this is certainly another important dimension. Another is gender differences, which are all well known to some of us who work in international contexts, especially in so-called developing countries, where women's access or participation in food production and distribution is more difficult and more costly than to men, and the benefits that they derive is much more limited. And finally, there is also a global level, a divide between poor and rich countries. And this is a research that we haven't really looked at so far, but if you think of circularity or sustainability at global level, it's something that we might want to look at. How the geopolitics of international trade favors some countries versus others, and in particular, poor countries are disadvantaged by the rules of international trade, including tariffs imposed by northern countries. So these are just some of the dimensions along which some of the work we've been doing and we plan to do can be conceptualized. Next, please. And I'd like just to finish with very high level, not very detailed questions for discussion, which is how, some of us have considered these themes as central to the things we do, and some of us may have noticed that these themes are important, but they've been maybe tangential. And so I'm interested to know, how does your work contribute to have just, fair, inclusive food systems? And which other entry points for creating more just systems can you identify, or would you prepare to contemplate in your future work? So I'll stop here, and glad to get to some questions in the chat or in person. Thank you.
I think most posts still are on the other topic, previous topics. So what are your responses to Renata's questions here?
Renata.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a response to the questions, but I'm just curious, where does policy come into the whole discussion in having inclusive food system and all this equity stuff? So I don't know if we have talked about policy and that part of the science and interactions with policies to be set.
Yeah, I mean, I will have a parallel session. One of the breakout sessions is on enabling institutional environment and policy. So this is also central to what I do. So the idea is, how do you affect also the system around it, around you? And so how does the research can not only identify constraints, but actually participate in a dialogue on how to remove those constraints. So to some extent, the research we do it can be more or less involved in that space. I think when it comes to people who are more in extension or already engaging with policy levels, they do this. I think some of the research we do can engage, especially maybe starting with the Florida level. We have been talking about that, how we can influence, at least at the state level, certain processes and dynamics.
Yeah, I mean, and it can be used to set research agenda. So if you interact with people like at USDA, NIFA, and as an institute, I think that could be really cool also to have more research on the topics and set the research agenda, because they're always looking for what is next, and DII systems now, I mean, are the thing to do, you know? So.
Yes, absolutely.
Renata, this is Rose.
Hi.
One of the with the circularity, you know, that going back to the whole systems approach, I think sometimes the drive for cheap or efficient, you know, which sometimes means cheaper food, sort of marginalizes those at the production end of the systems and the laborers. And so I think, you know, as people examine or model, you know, I think that there needs to be, you know, the just part of it, you know, the fair wage. I mean, a lot of this is class, you know, a class-driven challenge. And it does link to Sarah's marginalized communities and health outcomes. So there's a distinct link there too. So I think, you know, when we think about these systems, I do sometimes feel, and I'm not trying to be radical, but there is sometimes a disconnect between sort of the idea of efficiency and low price and optimization from that perspective, and you know, providing fair wages and you know, social you know, I guess enhancements on the social end that may not be linked to efficiency per se, unless there's really a societal shift in terms of thinking about you know, a sustainable system as including some of these human values. So that's my comment.
Rose, thank you so much for your comment. And it goes to the heart of the idea of this session, which is not to present a new theme, but to really remind, and hence the circular graph I presented before, that at the core of what we do, these themes have to be there. So whoever works on sustainability, circularity, any of the themes, productivity, we have to have these at the core. And I think this is the idea, and we want to forge alliances across the board to remind one another that this is an important and non-negotiable dimension, I think. So thanks.
Kathy, was there a comment from the chat that you'd pick up for?
Yeah, well, there's one that just came across.
There's many, but just time for one.
There's one that just came across. Nonprofit organizational capacity to distribute food and provide community services plays a role in justice and inclusion. Supporting organizational capacity can help address food system gaps. Many food and ag-related nonprofits are negatively impacted by public policy restrictions. Also, farmers associations contribute to setting policy agendas related to the FSI. Their ability to drive policy changes dependent upon their own organizational capacity. It'd be very interesting. I'd be very interested in contributing to research in this regard.
Thanks a lot, Kimberly, Wally, for this great point. Within the Innovation Lab, we do a lot of capacity building, and we hope to be able to do so within FSI and to do this with partners who are already involved in that in Florida and elsewhere. So thanks so much.
And with that, I would like to invite Karen to speak about yet a new aspect.
Great, thank you. Yeah, so I'll be speaking for a moment about artificial intelligence, big data, and food systems, and then we'll have some discussion about that as well. Let's see, could I have the next slide, please? Yeah, so artificial intelligence, so broadly defined, can be any sort of machine-based quantitative analyses that support decision-making and so on. So actually, University of Florida has a long history of developing models to support food systems. But what's happening that's new in recent years is the convergence of having faster computers, better integrated big data sets, and new methods in machine learning that can integrate across those. And you're probably all aware of the AI initiative at UF that's really investing strongly in AI research and implementation at University of Florida. Next slide. Yeah, and so it seemed like we're into thinking about what is a food system earlier. So here's another diagram, and I'll go through it kind of slowly. I had a particular lens that I thought was interesting for looking at it from the standpoint of artificial intelligence. Next. Yeah, so if we start thinking about this upper row of components of the system, so biophysical and environmental drivers, and innovations, technology, and infrastructure drivers. So, and then the lens I was interested in looking at these components through was this idea of what do you get from AI? So you have more data that you're integrating, you can have better decision support, you might have robotics and automation. And then just as our discussion just before this brings up, like who benefits? If the system becomes more efficient, who benefits? Well, and one thing that's interesting that I think to keep in mind as well, like if the system becomes more efficient, really it's more efficient at reaching whatever the goals are of the people involved in that activity, right? So, so people may be more efficient at reaching their goals, but then are the goals necessarily ones that we think are good goals, right? Like they might be externalizing costs or something like that to society. But let's see, next slide, please. Yeah, and I think that's really exciting. Well, so we often, when we think about AI, we'll think about digital agriculture, like having a tractor that will monitor what's happening in the fields, maybe customize the fertilizer applications or customize pesticide applications based on image analysis. Those sorts of decision support, which are pretty exciting and can make systems a lot more efficient. I think there are also exciting opportunities for better decision support at the policy level as well, as more data sets can be integrated together to support decision making. So I think that's another exciting aspect of using artificial intelligence tools with big data sets to think about being able to make more effective data-driven policies. Next, please. We can think about the food supply chain. Often I'm thinking about production systems, or as we talked about earlier, even pre-production systems like crop breeding. So crop breeding can be made more efficient with AI tools. Production systems can be made more efficient with tools as well. Like, well, like I was just mentioning, the idea of tractors that can implement like real-time decisions about how to introduce inputs into the system. And of course, distributing food can be made more efficient as well to reduce waste, and then also safer in terms of trace back forward types of systems in case there are food safety problems. So that's an exciting component as well. And next, please. So I thought this was an interesting conceptualization in this diagram, the food environment that people find themselves in. That's not how I necessarily think about food systems every day. Like, what's the food environment that people are experiencing? And of course, here's where we might have trade-offs, right? Like AI could maybe provide people with just the recipe they need to make healthy foods with the foods they have on hand, something like that. But an AI could also make marketing of unhealthy foods super efficient. So here could be trade-offs for society as well. And next slide, please. And yeah, and so this conceptualization emphasizes food consumers and diets. But of course, another super important aspect of food systems is their impact on the environment. And so again, this comes back to the question of what are our goals? Like farms could be made super efficient to get rid of every plant in this county that isn't maize, you know, or systems could be made super efficient so that we maintain biodiversity in the context of farms. So again, I think that we have to think about the goals that are being met more efficiently through AI. There are a lot of exciting opportunities there as well. And next, please. Yeah, and then back to thinking about the political policy options and how AI can support that. So the Sustainable Development Goals, just in case you're not familiar with them, are a list of goals that we would want for society, right? To reduce hunger dramatically, to reduce the number of people that have to live on a very small income dramatically, and so on. And so one hope that I would have then is that we can harness the new sorts of efficiencies from AI to help us reach these goals as well. And so I think maybe we should get back onto this for discussion, but I do have one more slide with a few other points that might be interesting for discussion. So one thing, as with a lot of technologies, right, part of our responsibility from working at a university is to help society keep up with implications of those technologies and what we need to think about to implement them well. So first here, we'd have to think about farm labor. That's a potentially a huge shift. I mean, it's happened to some extent in the US that the percentage of people working on farms isn't nearly as great. But then globally, that'll be a huge shift as well that may be pushed faster by AI and robotics. Second, can we use AI to reduce inequity, or what are the risks of increasing inequity if we're not paying enough attention to that issue? And third, of course, as we're using all this data to benefit society, how do we also balance that with protections for individuals' privacy? So those are some other interesting questions to bring up. But so maybe for discussion, it'd be good if we went back a slide. We could have that full view of the food system. And so I was trying to lay out here some of the components that I think would be interesting and for potential new collaborations with the Food Systems Institute. There are lots of people in IFAS, for example, who are working in some aspects of the food supply chain, but then also then across campus, there are people working in all these different aspects of a system like this. So I'd welcome your comments about that, how the work that you do could fit in to this sort of analysis of food systems in the context of AI and big data.
Karen, I had a quick question. Can you give an example or talk a little bit more about this relationship between AI and reducing inequity?
Okay, yeah. Well, so some of the applications that I'm familiar with are designed with that in mind. For example, working with CGIAR, which is often emphasizing working with smallholder farmers. And this idea of, well, and if we're thinking about an example like better crop disease management for smallholder farmers, so that's something that I think about. There are probably lots of other examples that people here could bring up as well. So the idea of thinking about how to better distribute our knowledge about disease management to farmers. So one, for example, maybe through phones, like people may have access to forecasts, like and actions that they need to take through phones. And then there might be feedbacks as well. Maybe people can enter information on their phones and get recommendations for their management. So these sorts of programs are often put in place with the goal of reducing inequity. But then there's no doubt whether that really happens or not, right? We're trying to help smallholder farmers have better management, which could reduce inequity. That's another step to make sure that it really does, which requires, of course, interdisciplinary teams to see whether we achieve that goal.
we may have time for one comment.
Right, there's a comment in the chat box, if I could bring that up. It's, we talk about how we produce more food with fewer farmers and new technologies. Does that account for farm workers? And let's see.
Oh, yeah, that's an interesting question, and that's outside of my area, so maybe somebody else can comment on that. But that is definitely a potential outcome, right, of the automation of census.
Okay, I have the unfortunate job of sort of moving us along. Yeah, we're ready to do some more breakouts. There's 3 topics now, and I have prepared the rooms, but I would like to give the session host just a quick chance to let people know what to expect. So while I start the rooms, if you can make a pitch, please.
Yes, I will start in the metrics and tools. We're going to talk about plans related to the identification and development of methods, metrics, and instruments or tools necessary to collect and generate valid and reliable data and information for systems analysis and decision support. And we are really interested in seeing how you see your expertise connecting with this cross-cutting theme, and if you are interested in contribute to it.
Okay, Magisa and Kathy? And you can start going to the rooms if you already know what you want to do. And Sebastian, you can, I think you already have people in your room now.
Yes, hi everybody. Renata, Sarah gave a very good introduction to the issues of inclusion, inequity, and lack of inclusion in the food systems. Come and join us to discuss this more and to collaborate on addressing these issues.
And hi again. In this session, we are going to look at the how to pay attention to the institutional environment in which food systems are situated, and how in turn engage actors in this environment to influence how the research is translated into practice, or how to engage with the policy level and the various stakeholders from the local to national and above. Thank you.
So I hope it's easier now for you to find your place, but I see messages in the chat box and I'll be putting you into those rooms. If you can, again, try to see at the bottom bar, the breakout symbol. You may have to click on that, but I'm going to continue to put people into rooms. Trent, I'll put you in 2 now. Oh, this is working much better than the first time, but bear with me. I'm trying my best to get you all where you want to be. Lacey, I know you said something there where Lacey 2, okay. 2. Okay, Ricardo, where would you like to go? Okay, you guys are figuring it out. Great. Yep, thank you. Awesome. Ricardo, Michael, and Mustafa, where would you like to go? You can just put it in the chat and I'll put you where you want to be.
Hey, Andrea.
Yeah, Saskia, did they kick you out again?
No, it's really my internet. I don't want to blame anyone. Just a heads up, you're still staring at your screen, huh?
Yeah, I know. I can't. I've been trying to stop sharing that, but it's not letting me. So I don't want to risk ending the session for everyone, so I'm just leaving as is. Yeah, it just takes me a moment to take a snapshot of these different.
Okay.
And I'll be done.
Thank you.
And now you see the PowerPoint again, right, Saskia?
Yes, I see.
Good, excellent. So Ricardo and Michael, I'm not sure if you hear me. Let me know if you would like me to put you into a room. Could also be that you have to deal with some other things, of course. Saskia, one of the things I love about Teams is, you know, I have my phone and the presentation that I'm sharing right now, I access the presentation through Teams. So I can actually see on my phone what the next slide is. You know what I mean? It's just, this cloud-based computing is just amazing. And I could see that Renata was making a few minute changes on her slide just before she got on. It's that the whole thing works so well, just blows my mind.
But the actual video quality and conferencing, I still think Zoom is better.
I think so too.
But I mean, it's just the way it is set up. It's what Dwayne said, you know, Zoom was primarily, you know, made for that, whereas that is one of the many functionalities of Teams.
Yep.
But yeah, so.
So the worst part, honestly, about my room is that I'm just freaking out about ending everybody's session by accident.
Well, I guess maybe, I don't know if the reminder, I don't know what surprised people so much with the last breakout. I don't know if it was
I think I'm going to give them
heads up. Maybe you just give them like, because once you have that, then it changes the dynamics of a group. So maybe leave out the 3-minute reminder and just have them the 1 minute so that they really only kind of lose, not share maybe.
So I did send a message about, so I gave a 3-minute warning via broadcasting. And then basically once I had close all rooms, it's 1 minute of transitioning. But I think that's a very abrupt experience. And I guess not everybody sees what is broadcast, but I'm going to do that again with a 3-minute warning. But we're doing really well. And I'm, you know, per timeline, they have 10 more minutes. I think I'll give them at least another 12. So
since you had also mentioned that you could give them, since we started a bit earlier, we didn't even have to full break. No, but I think I'm so impressed. There were still 90 people on the call. Before we broke for. So, and I see Ricardo is a PhD student in plant pathology.
Hi, Jose. Jose, can you hear us?
Yes, sorry, I was just I was leaving one of the breakout rooms. I didn't mean to come back here.
Okay, where would you like to go, Jose? Where were you and where would you like to go?
I was with Sebastian Galindo, but I can no longer be part of the webinar at this point.
You have to leave essentially. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
We know.
Uh-huh.
We know you were there, so we know Sebastian will follow up with his group, and then he knows that you were in there.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Well, thanks for participating.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yep. Bye.
So Jose is a small farms extension coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
That's nice.
Can you believe it's Friday again?
I'm looking at your one thing. Well, I may as well share. I don't know if Ricardo is still listening, but it's okay. You know, yesterday when we had that coordination meeting that chat more with Lacey. You know, you can always ask me, you know, what upset me was that you spent time searching for these documents, and then you showed me how you had searched for the documents and so on. And just drop me a line and I can help you find. I know that these Dropbox is really a mess. It's a jungle to find things there, but that is something that I was involved in. So most likely, so don't feel that you're bothering me or so on. Just don't waste your time. And you know,
actually, it didn't take much time. It started off.
Yeah, but I felt bad about that. It's like, God, you know, it's like, just ask me and then, you know.
It probably took me as much time as it would have to engage with you. It started off with Lacey basically saying, oh, look, there's all these country briefs in Marietta's folder. And I'm like, I don't even sync Marietta's folder. So, but we quickly figured out that those are probably some way old versions. And
yeah, so that's what I also mentioned in that Word document in Teams where, you know, with the backup, there shouldn't be any final version of that document in that folder.
Yeah, got it. Yeah, got it.
So, but I mean, absolutely, we have so many different.
And also, yeah, no, thanks. I didn't feel like I was going to bother you. I actually want to understand it myself.
But the thing is that at the time, maybe the logic made sense, but even for me now, who was involved in the logic at the time, it's no longer logic. So that's why.
Yeah. And also it's an example of there's so much one can do, but what is really, really important? And are we just going to invest a lot of time into something that other labs aren't even doing? Or if we do decide to do it, what is really the most efficient way to do it? And what is, you know, the role of the ME versus the faculty? I thought that was also really good. I'm really glad we brought that up. Yeah.
I just now Googled just typed in the word brief. And I mean, I don't know how many files. It's over 10,000 items. So I see all different versions. So I'm just gonna go in and I'm just gonna, you know.
And even delete. I mean, if you're doing this exercise.
No, exactly. I'm just gonna delete whatever folder is in. I'm just gonna delete. I mean, we don't need 8 versions of it.
We definitely don't.
You know, I look at the version with the latest date, and then that's the one I keep, and that's why Teams is such a breath of fresh air, you know, to
it
work.
It really is, isn't it? But for some people, it's still really hard to do. You know, they basically download it from Teams, and then they upload it again with a different file extension. And I think they don't quite trust it.
Yeah, and with the whole Rwanda discussion, you know, I'm using, and I haven't put that in Teams because Jorge doesn't use Teams. So that's why we still have that back and forth. And okay, Felix is also in those exchanges, so he is not yet on board. But but it's
the transition is the hard time. We'll get there. It's already saved me tons of time. Oops, no, I probably shouldn't do that. Okay, I changed my room around the other day. Let me see what we're doing with time. No, we're good with time still. And how the light falls in it's actually not an improvement of what I had earlier. So I think I have to shuffle things again around a little bit over the weekend.
Because before you were facing that wall, you looked outside.
Yeah, I used to have yes, you see that little dragon hanging there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I used to look at that basically, and now it's on my, yeah. Totally is beside the point, but you know, the table I'm using as a desk, that's the table my parents had when I was a baby. So I already sat at this table when I was a kid. It's been moved around to many places, and now it's probably come to its final resting home in America. But hi, Aaron. Did you get kicked out, or would you like to go to a different room?
Yes, I'm fine in this room. Yeah.
Okay. Did you just join the meeting, or were you in one of the breakout rooms?
I just joined the meeting right now because I was in bad connection. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. What's your field, Aaron?
Oh, I work in a plant pathology lab with Dr. Garrett. Yeah.
Oh, okay, good, great, excellent. Hi, Ilaria. Did you get kicked out, or did you want to be in a particular place? We can help you get there.
Hi. No, I was actually going to join for the final part, and so.
Oh, good, excellent. Yes,
that's why I'm here.
Excellent. Yes, we've decided to give the breakout rooms just a little bit more time because we found that we don't need that much time for the plenary. But yeah, so glad I saw you were on early on. Really glad you to join.
I listened to the very first part, and then I had to go somewhere else, but Luca was connected, so.
Cool. Yeah, somewhat unrelated. I bet you're also pretty happy about Dr. Fauci's new role, huh?
Yeah, of course. Big changes.
Yes. Yeah, and some ambitious goal. It's definitely not going to be Alachua County that is to blame if the 100 million vaccines are not achieved in the first 100 days. You guys are doing an exemplary job there. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Hi, Kathy. How are things going from your perspective?
Very good. I was in Renata's session. It was really good.
Mm-hmm.
Very productive. Cool. Lots of good conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, we still have a good number of participants. Yeah, and I put it in the chat. So I actually took snapshots of of who was in which room. So
okay, that's good. I went through in the first breakout. I went through and wrote everybody down from everybody's group. But I'm glad you got it covered. Yeah. So what my plan was to, I mean, we can talk about this later, but it's super easy to then update the spreadsheet and where, and then it's easy for people to follow up. I probably take a little bit of a break at 4 o'clock. I'm going to step away and walk around the block before I find myself at the desk again. Yeah. All right. What time do we all come back?
Yep, I'm going to send the broadcast message now.
Okay.
Yep. Send that message out now. We want to give them a bit more time. You were really good in the reporting back. That was very succinct. You know, there's some really, really good chat contributions. I know you go back to the chats a lot when you write the minutes, right? Mm-hmm. So I have to look it up again. There is a little trick that you know how it has the timestamp, and then and so that all of this takes up a lot of space. And there's a way that you can selectively delete the timestamps and the from, and so you still have the name of the person, but you removed a lot of that text, and then it becomes easier to deal with. And then you can move, you know, like here in our chat now, people said which group they want to be in. We can move those and have a cleaner document.
Okay, I usually just save the chat using those 3 dots on the menu. Yeah, I don't know anything beyond that.
Okay, I'm going to look up if I find my instructions again on how to do that. I know
Okay.
the other day I tried doing it, it didn't work, but I should be able to send a cleaner version to you pretty soon.
Oh, okay. Great.
Yep. So, and okay, I'm going to send a message to all, and I'm going to will be closing the rooms momentarily. Okay, close all rooms. Kathy, have a lot of people come back to you yet about the decision what type of membership they want?
Yeah, actually during our event today, I've received a few emails.
Fantastic.
So, right,
well, that's
yeah.
exactly what we hope. Wonderful, wonderful.
And then quite a few people have signed up for our listserv as well during the event. So yeah, it's good.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. So let me take a quick check. How are we doing?
This has long-term implications.
Okay, good to see you all coming back. I hope this session felt a little less rushed.
Oh, yes, it did.
You had a big fan club there, Sebastian. Think you
Yes,
had
we had like 36 people, I think, at some point.
Pretty cool. Very good. Very good. Okay. I think everybody seems to be back. Let me just do one more check. Breakout rooms. Nope. Okay. Well, I hope you had a great time in the breakout rooms. I always feel a little left out when this thing happens. But I would like to hand over to Cheryl to moderate the feedback session. You muted, Cheryl.
Yeah, sorry. So yeah, thanks everybody. I sat in one of the groups, and so I'm also looking forward to hearing what the other group said. So we'll start with the metrics and tools groups with Sebastian.
Thank you, Cheryl. Well, we had a large participation there. We had like 36 people at some point. Great discussion, many different topics. Let me see if I can cover those quickly. We talked about discrepancies in data, in the way metrics are used and tools are used, and so it makes it difficult to integrate. We also talk about at the same time, we understand that we need to use different metrics and models for different systems and different components of the system. Also the need for the curation of tools to make sure that the tools are revised and are valid. And also this idea of different types of the value of different types of methods or tools, for example, agent-based models versus probably environmental-based model or biophysical models and all those different things. The issue also of scaling at which level we are using models are developed, and then downscaling those models probably to be more applicable. Access to data is a key thing. At some stages we have access to really good data, but at other stages it is very difficult to have access to those data because they are not publicly available. So how do we do that? Then this idea of returning to the idea of harmonizing the data for uniformity. And here it was discussed that we probably can learn from the experience now with the COVID-19 pandemic, in particular, making sure that the data were all quickly ready and accessible to everybody and curated. And one comment there was, well, there was a focus there on a very particular thing. And here we are talking about food systems that is huge. So it is more difficult to do that. So maybe we need to start also creating like a model, the conceptual model where we go there. And then this curation process or getting this data many times is mandated from top-down approaches and not so much from a grassroots. So we need to also, in this case, we are working more from a grassroots, identifying this need that we have and how can we go out and maybe get some funding to do this. And a great idea was also to try to select like a local project or something where we can focus and use some of these approaches to enhance the tools and metrics that we need and we can develop. I invite any of the participants of the group to add anything that I may have missed. I think that's what I was able to keep track of. Thanks, Sherry.
Okay, sorry, I'm lost in the whole system here. So next we'll have inclusion and equity discussion. And I don't know who is going to present, so
I'm going to start, Cheryl, but I'll turn it over also to Nargiza and other people.
Okay, great.
We're in attendance. We had about 17 people that participated in our session, and we started off by discussing how do people see inclusion and equity? How do they define it? Because everybody has a different version of what that looks like. And so we had some great discussion around fairness and about access and about equal opportunities, et cetera, et cetera. And then we got into discussing some of the proposed activities that we're considering for inclusion and equity. And we had a very lively discussion because we had a lot of people that were there that participate and work with youth in Florida. And also we had folks that are working with marginalized communities, particularly Hispanic and Latino farm workers. And so we got the opportunity to discuss how might what we're proposing in our FSI inclusion and equity cross-cutting theme apply domestically. And there was particular interest in how do we get youth more engaged in the idea that agriculture is a sustainable and profitable business for them to get involved with, since that is an issue not only domestically, but internationally. So there was a lot of discussion around that. We also had some discussion about who else needed to be in the room. Besides the folks that were attending, we would like to see more people in 4-H, potentially more people involved in nutrition. And there was even a suggestion to get some folks involved from psychology. And I know Sarah had talked about folks that she's involved with that are helping her with behavior analysis. So I think that we need to kind of diversify the group that attended, and it seems like there's a tremendous amount of interest in this topic. So now, Nargiza or anybody else that attended, please feel free to contribute.
I can add that gender is not important. Gender is part of the inclusion and equity, but we are taking a broader approach to look at all the social issues that intersect with the food systems and making sure that the researchers working from the biophysical side are also including considerations related to inclusion and equity from the very start of their research design. So these aspects are incorporated and addressed.
Great. Anybody else want to add some comments? We appreciate everybody that attended. We look forward to working with you.
Yeah, please be in touch. As Andrea said, we will be provided the names of the people that joined our breakout session, and hope we plan to follow up and create this group to work together.
Great. Thanks, Cheryl.
All right, thanks. That was good. It's good to hear all the excitement and continuation of the discussion. So we'll have the last breakout group on enabling environment, and Renata Serra, or one of her participants, will summarize for us.
Yeah, thanks. Sandra, would you like to share, or?
Andrea muted me. So.
Okay, Sandra helped me, so I would like to give her the word. Yeah.
Oh dear, I took notes in the chat and I don't have the notes in front of me. We did get into a discussion about, overall, the discussion seemed to center on, as scientists, we work with a lot of different kinds of stakeholder groups. And these can be from NGOs to producer associations to, like Renata has mentioned, work with actual national governments in other countries. And so how do we play that role? Because some expressed that they don't want to get too involved with the activists, they want to maintain their neutrality. But on the other hand, if they can mediate between the activists and the policymakers, that might be a role they could take. And there was a suggestion that maybe the FSI might do a training or find somebody that can do the training for faculty to learn how to write science policy and how to communicate with scientists. A lot of times as scientists, we think that the facts are going to win people over, and it's often not the facts that win people over. There's other things that influence. We talked about sometimes policy intentions are good, but then they have unintended consequences and there's trade-offs. So we had a keen group of people, about 17. And I don't know, what else, Renata, did we?
I think you summarized very well. I was really struck by the interest for this area, but also sharing of a certain reluctance or lack of preparedness to engage at this level, which is all too understandable. And so it's an area where we can really contribute and share what we have been doing and what has been more or less successful. So rather than a training like a top-down, I'm thinking we can certainly organize a session, a workshop in which we share positive examples and we learn from one another. So I got this idea. So if anybody's interested in, even those who couldn't attend this meeting, in this kind of workshop together, maybe one day, I'm very happy with, I emphasize lessons from Florida and internationally. Yeah. Thank you very much for everybody participation.
Okay, we have like 1 minute before we get to the wrap-up session. Any last minute comments, anybody? All right, well, I think we had some great breakout groups and lots of follow-up to do. So now we'll start the closing remarks. Bull asked me to go first. I'm the Associate Director of the Food Systems Institute and also part of the Ag and Biological Engineering Department. So anyway, I was very excited today, first to see the number of participants, but also just the enthusiasm and the participation. Lots and lots of people with very good ideas, but new ideas. We were a small group getting this FSI moving, but now I really see lots of expertise and questions that we hadn't even thought of. And that just brings out the whole purpose of this, that the University of Florida has such a diverse group of people with very different approaches. And that just makes it a richer program that we can put together and institute. I think lots of good follow-up we'll put together and get back in touch with you. But despite all the diversity we brought together, some gaps have been identified. And the fact that we had 37 people talking about metrics and tools and 17 talking about policies and enabling environment says a lot right there. And as someone said in the chat, we need more policy. If we're really going to have impact, you need policy, you need social scientists to get that out. And it's great that there are so many people in Extension that have joined us. And now we need to just figure out how to work together around some common food systems and think how to put that together. So with that, I'd like to thank everybody, and I'm excited. It's great that so many of you wanted to take a Friday afternoon to discuss these issues, and I'll now pass it on to Bola. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cheryl. I would like to remind us about the options for membership. So there's the affiliate membership. And as I mentioned earlier, I think here where we had participate in faculty meetings, that is really at your discretion. You're very welcome to participate. In fact, would love you to do so as a faculty member, but please look at these two and let us know which one, which of these options you are interested in. We've already got quite a number of faculty even before today, and some today who have let us know. So please let us know about that, about your interest. Second point I'd like to make is, who have we left out? Who should be part of this institute? Perhaps people within IFAS and more so even people outside of IFAS. Please let us know, please reach out to us. And the other thing is, even if you're not sure about whether you want to join right away, please join our mailing list so you can be kept updated about our activities. One of the things that we'll be doing soon is follow-up meetings. So for all these different breakout sessions, the leaders will be convening breakouts, and we would hope that you would participate in those. So please sign up. Kathy, please help me out. What is you can reach out to any of us, or you can use the FSI email address. What is it, Kathy?
It's food systems. Hang on, sorry. Let me put it. It's
in the chat.
foodsystems.ifas.ufl.edu. I'll put it in the chat.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So please let us know that you want to join the mailing list. Let us know who else to join. We're just starting, and I think there's so much energy here, and like Cheryl said, it's very exciting to see the enthusiasm that was generated today. So we really look forward to organizing some key symposia and workshops on very topical issues. This whole idea of carbon positive agriculture and food systems is one that I'm very interested in, and I'm sure that many of us are. But also in the sphere of teaching, what are those multidisciplinary courses? So we want to convene a group to think about that. And in the extension area, what can we do together? And of course, that's in addition to proposals, writing proposals together to look for funding and discussing key important areas. So please watch this space. I did want to also thank everyone for participating. It's kind of really humbling to think that about 120 very busy faculty set aside their Friday afternoon to join us, and so many of you stayed till the end. We still have over 60 people, so thank you very much. That is greatly appreciated. Thanks for working with us. I think Andrea was feeling lonely, and that's why she kept pulling us away from the breakout groups early. But thank you very much for working with us. We're going to save the chat. We're going to review the chat and think about how we move forward from here. So we really look forward to continuing this discussion, for collaborating, for welcoming many of you on board. So with that, I think the last thing for me to do is to really thank all of you for participating once more. Special thanks also to the FSI faculty who gave some of those presentations, as well as those who led breakout groups. Thank you very much. And special thanks to those who organized this session. Cheryl and Saskia and Andrea, Kathy, thank you very much. So thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful weekend. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay. Well, thank you, Andrea. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I think this worked really well.
Did I mention you, or I forgot to mention your name?
You did mention me. You did.
Okay.
That's fine.
I just privately said that, to Andrea, it went very well, both in groups and in plenary. So well done, everybody.
Well, thank you. Thank you all.
Well done, Cheryl and Katie. Really great job.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I think it went extremely well. The enthusiasm was incredible.
Yeah. Very
Now
much.
we have to follow up.
Yeah, we have to figure out how to integrate all this. It's going to be a challenge, but I think it really will add. I think it's a great step.
I think we achieved exactly what we wanted to achieve with this event. And when we first
and beyond, I think.
Beyond, I think, beyond.
Yeah. Great.
I'm already getting emails.
Kathy and Andrea, fantastic job.
Yeah.
Well, good teamwork. Thank you.
Well, great teamwork. Thank you all. I mean, you guys make me look good, and I'm not the one who is, but it's you guys.
But Bola, you set the tone.
No.
You set the tone, and that's so important.
No, I'm just a figurehead. It's you guys.
No, you're much more than that. You're much more. Than
Enjoy the weekend, folks.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you too.
Yep.
Andrea, do you need to talk? Or are you good?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
I'm good.
All right.
I just now I actually do need to just go outside and clear my mind.
For sure. Right.
Yeah.
I'm around if you need anything now. You know that.
No, I think I think we can call it a day.
Okay. All right.
The emails will still be there Monday morning.
It's true. It's true. All right. Y'all have a good weekend.
And Bola and I would see each other late Sunday evening to talk with our friends in Nepal. But at least we got it to 10:15 for you, right, Bola?
Yeah, well, thank you.
Okay, see you. Bye.
All right, thanks, bye.